When it comes to money, most people think of numbers, spreadsheets, or complex equations waiting to be solved. But in reality, the most important decisions about money don't happen on a computer or inside financial reports. They happen around the dinner table, in emotional conversations woven with pride, fear, ego, and childhood memories. Here's what I want you to understand. Money is not just formulas. It's a strange dance between logic and instinct. And in that game, your behavior matters more than your knowledge. It's not about how much you know about markets or finance. It's about how you behave with money that determines where you'll end up. I'm sure you've seen this before. Some people are incredibly knowledgeable about finance. They understand every investment model, yet they remain broke. Meanwhile, others only grasp the basics, but they live with stability, accumulate wealth, and enjoy solid financial peace. That's because they act better, not necessarily because they know more. We are complex creatures when it comes to money, and so are you. Every decision you make financially, what you spend on, how much you save, where you invest, is driven by your life experiences, your memories, and everything you once saw growing up. And here's the key point. There is no perfect way to manage money. Everyone has a different past, a unique emotional blueprint. So when you see someone being wasteful or hesitating to invest, remember, they're not crazy. So they're just reacting based on their belief systems and personal experiences. What about you? Have you ever wondered why you get cautious whenever the word investment comes up? Or, on the contrary, do you often find yourself jumping into opportunities too quickly without knowing why? Those reactions aren't random. They're the result of how you were raised, what you lived through. I want you to start looking inward, not to judge, but to understand. To realize that every financial behavior you have today has deep roots. And once you see that clearly, you'll begin to regain control over your choices. Money doesn't control you unless you let it. And the best part, you can change the way you see, think, and act around money. You don't have to be a financial genius. You just have to understand yourself and be disciplined enough to shift one small decision at a time every single day. I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on this. What did you witness about money when you were growing up? What did your parents usually say about earning, saving, investing, or spending? Did they worry about bills, argue over shortages, or perhaps they lived comfortably but stayed cautious of risk? Those memories you thought were long forgotten, they're still operating quietly within you. That's your financial DNA, an invisible operating system shaping how you make decisions today. None of us is born with a perfect financial mindset. Each person grows up in a different environment, exposed to different realities, and develops deeply personal beliefs about money. Some are born during periods of booming economies. They saw their parents invest in profit, so they believe the market is a place of opportunity. Others were raised in unstable times where money was always tight. They grow up with fear and a defensive mindset. Let me share something interesting with you. Those born in the 1970s who came of age during a booming stock market tend to believe in investing in stocks. In contrast, those born in the 1950s, when the market stagnated for decades, are more likely to be skeptical and avoid risk. And what about those raised during times of high inflation? They tend to be cautious, vigilant, always prioritizing value preservation over risky gains. Same humanity, same planet, yet just a few years apart in birth creates two entirely different belief systems. Your financial mindset isn't written in reason, but in personal experiences that cannot be copied. Every decision you make, no matter how irrational or illogical it may seem to others, has its own logic, rooted in your life's story. That doesn't mean you're always right, but it does explain why you think the way you do. And here's the most important thing I want you to remember. There is no absolute right in personal finance. There is only what fits your life context and personal lens. That's why two people can read the same financial book and make completely different decisions, because they're not just carrying knowledge, they're carrying memories, wounds, and expectations. I'm not telling you this to make you stop taking action. I'm telling you so that you begin to look at yourself differently, with more fairness and depth. Don't rush to blame yourself for the money you've wasted or the bad investments you've made, and don't blindly copy someone else's strategy without understanding the origin of your own mindset. Because if you don't take ownership of your source code, you'll keep acting on instinct and never truly achieve financial freedom. So today, ask yourself, what beliefs about money am I carrying? Are they really true or just things I've unconsciously absorbed? And if there's a belief that needs rewriting, you are the only one who can do it. No one else. You are the programmer of your new financial DNA. And you can start right now. Have you ever watched someone make a financial decision that left you confused? Someone spends their entire month's salary on luxury items. Someone else takes on debt to invest in an idea that sounds utterly unrealistic. Or perhaps someone who has more than enough money chooses to live extremely frugally, almost shut off from the world. We often slap a label on them, irrational, clueless, or foolish. But you know what? No one is crazy. They're just living out a different story than yours. Every decision a person makes, especially around money, is guided by an invisible stream of data. What they've lived through, what they've witnessed, what they've felt. It's a filter called their personal story. Maybe they watched their parents drown in debt. Maybe they lost everything in a failed investment. Maybe they felt abandoned during times of poverty. Or maybe they were only shown love through expensive gifts. So now when they act a certain way, even if it baffles you, to them it makes perfect sense. It's rational. It's rooted in reason. I want you to understand this deeply. There is no one-size-fits-all model. Finance is not like mathematics, where 1 + 1 always equals 2. It's the art of emotion, of experience, of identity. One person may refuse to invest in the stock market simply because they saw their father go bankrupt after trusting the wrong people. Another might risk it all because to them, missing out feels more terrifying than the risk itself. Each person is fighting their own unique fears, holding onto their own private hopes and carrying their own past, and so are you. What you're doing with money doesn't necessarily reflect how smart you are. It reflects what you've been through. Once you begin to see this, you'll develop a new kind of compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. You'll stop blaming yourself for past financial mistakes. Instead, you'll start observing them as part of the journey, as a map to help you understand yourself better. I'm not saying every financial decision is right, of course not, but I'm asking you not to rush to judgment. When you see someone take a path different from yours, remember, they're not crazy. They're just continuing along a road you've never had to walk. And on the flip side, if someone doesn't understand your choices, don't let it bother you. They haven't lived your story. In the end, the point isn't to prove who's right and who's wrong. It's to learn how to step outside of your ego and realize this. Finance is one of the most personal things in life. And you, not anyone else, are the only one with the right to continue writing your own story, consciously, compassionately, and with greater strength each passing day. If you've ever wondered why some people achieve extraordinary wealth while others still struggle, I want you to pause and look closely at one factor most people overlook: time. It's not the highest return rate, nor superior intelligence. It's time, combined with perseverance, that creates what I call a quiet form of magic: compound interest. Imagine you invest $1,000, 0 cents, at an 8% annual return. In the first year, you earn $80, 0 cents. But in the second year, you don't just earn interest on the initial $1,000, 0 cents. You earn it on $1,080, 0 cents. And the numbers keep growing. It may not seem like much at first, but by year 10, year 20, year 30, the results become staggering. Why? Because you're not just earning returns on your principal, you're earning returns on the previous return. That's the power of interest on interest. a silent process so powerful it feels almost unreal. I'm telling you this not to talk about math, but to emphasize a rarely discussed truth. The secret of great investors isn't in picking the perfect stock, it's in starting early and staying the course for a long, long time. Some people began investing at age 10, and only in their 60s did they truly become billionaires. That means over 90% of their massive wealth didn't come from genius moves. It came from letting time work for them without interruption. You might be thinking, what if I didn't start early? Trust me, it's not too late. The magic of compounding isn't just about starting early. It's about not stopping. Most people don't fail because they're bad at investing. They fail because they quit midway while their gains are still germinating underground. They get impatient, shift gears, or panic when the market drops. But you don't have to. All you need to do is plant steadily and stay patient enough to harvest in due time. And here's something even more powerful. Don't limit your thinking about compound interest to finance alone. In life, too, every act of discipline, every good habit, every book you read, every time you say no to temptation is a small investment that quietly compounds. Maybe not today, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, those will become the most valuable assets you've ever built. Yourself. So if you want to know what truly makes the difference, it's not those dramatic leaps. It's the ability to go far steadily without quitting. The strength doesn't lie in the numbers. It lies in the consistency that walks hand in hand with time. That is the secret so many people see, yet so few are patient enough to live by. But you, I believe, you've begun to see the truth. Hold on to it. And let time be your most faithful companion on the journey toward real wealth and lasting freedom. I understand. When it comes to money, most people feel anxious. Every day the news is filled with sensational headlines about crises, recessions, inflation, and bursting bubbles. And in that environment, maintaining a positive outlook can feel like a luxury. But let me be clear. I'm not talking about naivete. I'm talking about practical optimism. A kind of belief that is grounded in reason, yet still full of hope. Have you ever noticed? When the stock market drops 40% in just a few months, it's splashed across every headline. But when it quietly recovers 140% over the next 6 years, almost no one mentions it. The human mind is wired to react more strongly to loss than to slow progress. We're drawn to the sudden, the tragic, the negative. But the truth is, most good things arrive quietly and require a lot of time. The reason we so easily fall into pessimism is not because life is bad, but because we lack patience. We want results now, success now, healing now. And when that doesn't happen, we label it failure. But think back for a moment. How many times in your life did you believe you'd hit rock bottom, only to find yourself standing taller than you ever imagined not long after? Progress works that way. It doesn't scream, it doesn't headline. It arrives quietly, little by little. I'm not asking you to ignore risk. On the contrary, you need to see clearly what could go wrong, not to fear it, but to prepare. Acknowledging risk is wisdom. Believing you can overcome it is strength. Optimism is not denial. It's looking reality straight in the eye and choosing to move forward anyway. Remember this. Bad things tend to happen fast, but good things take time. Hundreds of disasters can strike overnight, but no miracle blooms in a single sleep. That's why you must learn to be patient with the positive rather than hypersensitive to the negative. Practical optimism is the belief that even with the falls, the sharp turns, the unexpected detours, in the long run, things tend to get better, not because of magic, but because of evolution, effort, and the persistent actions of people like you, people who dare to believe in improvement, people who keep going even when the light isn't visible yet. So if you're going through a difficult time, don't lose your faith, not because things will be easy, but because you are stronger than you think. And because, like sunlight, hope doesn't need to be blinding to illuminate the path ahead. You only need to keep walking with clarity, calm, and a steady trust in what tomorrow may bring. I want you to imagine a sailboat drifting across the ocean. The sailor can steer the rudder, adjust the sails, calculate the route, but he cannot command the wind. The wind may push the boat swiftly forward, or it may crash it down in an unexpected storm. And in the story of your life, that wind is luck and risk, two invisible forces that always travel side by side. We often celebrate successful people with a familiar phrase, "They made it." And yes, every success requires talent, discipline, and hard work. But let's not forget that along with effort, there are elements that can't be measured, like a chance meeting with the right person, a decision made just as the market took off, or simply being born in the right city at the right time. That is luck. And on the other side, there are people full of potential, yet halted by an unforeseen event. That is risk. Let me tell you a true story. Once, there were 3 high school students who shared a deep passion for computers. They were all smart, hardworking, and full of promise. 2 of them, went on to build a technology company that changed the world. The third, he died in a mountain climbing accident just before graduation. A 1 in a million chance to get a powerful start, and a 1 in a million chance to face a fatal end. All 3 were equally deserving of success, but only 2 moved forward because of luck and risk. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this so you can become more humble in success and more compassionate in failure. When you see someone rise beyond limits, don't assume they're just a genius. Yes, they worked hard, but they also caught a favorable wind. And when you see someone fall back, don't rush to label them as weak. Maybe they were just hit by a storm no one could have predicted. Success has never been an absolute formula. It's a combination of ability, circumstance, timing, and a not so small portion of variables. And when you understand this, you'll be gentler with yourself. You'll stop comparing. You'll feel gratitude for what you have, and you'll also learn to forgive your stumbles, because some things are simply outside your control. In the end, what I want you to remember is this: steer your boat with all the intention, caution, and determination you can muster, but accept that you cannot command the wind. And that's not failure, it's the nature of life. If one day you catch a tailwind, stay humble. If a storm comes, stay resilient, because in the end, you, not luck or risk, decide whether to keep rowing or to give up in the middle of the sea. I know you're working hard to build a better life. You're saving diligently, planning your investments, searching for opportunities, all in pursuit of stability and happiness. But let me ask you something directly. Do you own your time? Can you do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, without having to ask for permission or negotiate your way there? If the answer is no, then no matter how much money is in your account, you're not truly free. Time is the most precious currency you're trading every single day. Yet the sad truth is, many people spend their entire lives exchanging time for money, only to later use that money to buy back the moments they lost. But time doesn't work like that. You can lose money and earn it back, but a morning that slips away, a year that passes, you'll never get them back in the same way. And that's what makes time truly priceless. I used to think financial freedom was about having enough money to buy whatever I wanted. But then I realized something deeper. True freedom is having full control over how you spend your time, not how much you own. There are many people who are wealthy in assets but poor in life. They no longer have a single moment for themselves, their families, or their passions, because every hour is priced in obligations and responsibilities, and that is not happiness. Happiness, in its truest sense, is the feeling of living a life you've chosen, not being pulled along by a race someone else set. It's being able to rest without guilt. It's working not because you're forced to, but because you truly want to create something meaningful. It's having the power to say no to what no longer aligns so you can make time for what truly does. And you know what? Here's the strange part. Controlling your time doesn't require you to be a millionaire. It begins with small, deliberate choices, reordering your priorities, carving out 1 hour a day just for yourself, stepping away from borrowed lifestyles to live a life that's alert, intentional, and yours. Money only has real value when it buys you back the ability to control your schedule, your space, and your state of mind. So if you're on a journey toward freedom and fulfillment, don't just count your money. Count the mornings you wake up in peace. Count the moments you don't need to check the clock, don't need to justify your rest, don't need to trade your soul for another deadline. Make time to live, not just work to survive, because in the end, happiness doesn't come from what you can buy. It comes from how you use your time. Like someone who knows they have a choice, and that choice, I believe, is yours to reclaim, starting today. I want you to picture this. You spend a whole year working, learning, experimenting, and failing. 9 times you stumble and no one notices. 9 ideas you pitch and no one believes. But then, on the 10th try, one idea, one eye moment, one action changes everything. And suddenly people start calling you a genius. But the truth is, you've simply touched a tail event. A rare occurrence where 1% of your efforts create 99% of the impact. In investing, in business, in life, not everything you do will lead to a massive result. But a few things, if you persist long enough, can deliver outcomes so outsized that they outweigh every failure combined. These rare events, though infrequent, are the very forces that shape the world. One painting becomes a masterpiece among hundreds of average ones. One piece of technology births an empire. One person rises at the right moment and alters the destiny of an entire community. And sometimes one decision, your decision, opens a new chapter no one saw coming. We are often obsessed with being right all the time, with succeeding in every attempt. But life doesn't work that way. The best investors are only right about half the time. The greatest leaders have made countless wrong calls, and the artists you admire, though you only see their most iconic works, have hundreds, even thousands of drafts that were discarded in silence. I share this so you'll understand. You don't need to win every battle to win your life. You only need to keep moving long enough, consistently enough, until luck, or rather the right moment, arrives. And when it does, it will repay every rejection, every doubt, and every moment you were underestimated. The world doesn't always reward consistent effort unless that effort reaches a peak. But no peak ever appears without those steady, quiet steps that came before it. You can't predict when a tail event will happen, but you can create the conditions for it by continuing to act, to experiment, to refine, and above all, to not give up. You might be in a phase where everything feels quiet, no recognition, nothing stands out. But remember, maybe one small thing you're doing today is the very thread that leads to the tail event of your life. And that great thing, it often arrives after a long trail of things that seemed small and insignificant. So don't measure yourself by individual outcomes. Measure yourself by the persistence you're holding, by the effort no one sees, by the silent commitment you give to your journey. Because in the end, this world doesn't belong to those who are always right. It belongs to those who don't stop before the miracle happens. You've seen it before, a flashy car gliding down the street, a friend constantly posting glamorous check-ins, someone flaunting luxury watches, extravagant vacations, sprawling houses, and you wonder, is that what wealth really looks like? But here's a truth I want to whisper into your ear right now. True wealth isn't in what you see, it's in what you don't see. Because what you see is often just a symbol of spending. Real wealth lies in the ability not to spend. The person who can afford the luxury car but chooses not to, that's someone who owns their freedom. The person who could show off but chooses to live quietly, that's someone who truly controls themselves. Wealth isn't about how many things you own. It's about how many resources you haven't used, how much capital is silently growing, working for you in the background. We live in a world where looking rich has become an unspoken race, and sadly, many are burning through money to buy attention instead of buying freedom. They spend beyond their means for validation. They borrow to maintain an image, but you don't have to play that game, because real wealth doesn't need an audience. It's a sense of peace that lives quietly inside you. Understand this. Every time you choose not to buy something just to impress, Every time you save instead of splurge, every time you invest instead of indulge, you are laying down the foundation for your own financial freedom. And nobody sees it, but you do. And you'll feel the strength of it in ways no sports car could ever give you. Silent wealth doesn't sparkle on the surface. It doesn't make people gasp, but it helps you sleep better. It makes you resilient when life throws a storm. It gives you the power to work out of passion, not out of fear. It allows you to say no to what doesn't deserve you, and yes to what truly matters. So the next time you see someone living large, remind yourself of this simple truth. You don't know what they had to sacrifice to get there. And likewise, when you choose a quieter, more measured path, maybe no one knows what you're building. But you know, you're not just keeping money. You're keeping control over your life. True wealth is when you don't need to prove anything to feel enough. When you can choose to live with depth, with intention, with sustainability, without chasing the validation of others. And if that's how you're living, even in silence, then let me say this with full conviction. You are already wealthier than many who try to prove it every single day. When we talk about investing or building a solid financial future, we usually think of cost in numerical terms. How much money is involved, what the interest rate is, what percentage the transaction fees are. But the truth is, the real price you pay to go far is not in dollars, it's in emotions. It's the uncertainty while waiting, the sleepless nights when markets swing, the self-doubt when everyone around you chooses the easier path, and the unshaken discipline to keep going even when there's no visible reward in sight. Most people want high returns, but they're not ready to pay the emotional toll those returns demand. They want a smooth, safe, predictable journey. But let me be honest with you. There's no great reward without turbulence. The price doesn't show up on a receipt, but it's always there. It's the urge to pull your money out when the market is bleeding red. It's the feeling of being wrong for saving instead of spending like your friends. It's the loneliness of sticking to a disciplined life in a world obsessed with instant gratification and flashy indulgence. I've seen many people give up not because they lacked the money, but because they couldn't bear the emotional strain. They couldn't tolerate delayed gratification. They resisted instability. They wanted everything now, clear and guaranteed. But listen, whether you're investing money, time, or effort in yourself, the journey will always demand that you step into the fog where nothing is certain except the belief you carry inside. What's crucial is that you learn to accept these emotions as a natural part of the path. Don't treat them as punishment. Treat them as the price of admission to everything worthwhile. Just like climbing a mountain, you can't expect to see breathtaking views without sore legs. You can't reach the summit without enduring exhaustion. And you can't become the wealthy, free version of yourself if you avoid every discomfort along the way. People look at financial markets and think they can outsmart the system, buy low, sell high, time it perfectly, but the truth is, everyone pays a price, one way or another. Successful people are the ones who accept that cost, pay it consistently, and don't quit halfway, not because they're fearless, but because they know fear is not worth sacrificing the future. So if you're feeling anxious, uncertain, or doubtful as you move through your financial or personal growth journey, that's not a sign you're off track. It's proof that you're truly in the game, that you're investing not just with money, but with emotion. And I want you to remember this: everything truly valuable in life comes with a cost, and sometimes that cost isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the quiet, powerful growth that happens every time you choose to rise above yourself. In a world that constantly urges you to want more money, more assets, more followers, the phrase knowing enough may sound like a contradiction, even a step backward. But listen, I'm not talking about giving up ambition or living an extreme minimalist life. I'm talking about a deeper kind of wisdom, the ability to know when to stop, to know where the safe boundary lies before desire wipes out everything you've worked so hard to build. Many people climb too high on the ladder of success without ever pausing to ask, why am I climbing? They just keep going, always seeking more, and then one day, whether through burnout, collapse, or complete disorientation, they fall. Not because they were incapable, but because they couldn't define the line between striving for more and being consumed by ambition. Knowing enough means having something left before the price of pursuit makes everything meaningless. You see this most clearly in those who once stood at the top. Some had it all, wealth, power, fame, and then lost it all because they couldn't stop. Not because they didn't know what was right or wrong, but because they couldn't tolerate the feeling of having enough. So they kept playing the endless game where every win pulled in a new temptation until their values were drained dry. I'm not telling you to stop growing. I'm inviting you to pause and reflect, to check why you're chasing what you're chasing, who you're doing it for, and what price you're silently paying for your ambition. Knowing enough doesn't make you poorer. In fact, it protects everything you've already earned: your finances, your health, your relationships, and most importantly, your peace of mind. In a world that measures success by ever-increasing numbers, knowing enough is a bold act of courage. It's when you can watch others gain more and still feel grounded in what you already have. It's when you choose to live with direction, not just momentum. It's when you realize that true freedom doesn't come from having it all. It comes from not needing it all to feel complete. So if today you feel like you're not yet where you want to be, not as rich, not as successful, take a deep breath. Look at what you do have. You might be in possession of something others chase their whole lives and still never find: awareness. And that awareness may very well be your saving grace, the thing that keeps you from falling into the trap of endless desire disguised as striving. Knowing enough isn't a limit. It's the foundation to protect what matters most: yourself. When you know where to stop, you begin to see clearly what's worth continuing for. And from that place of inner fullness, you can go farther, longer, and with far more meaning on your journey to live and grow with purpose. When you think about money, you might picture numbers, charts, investment strategies, or long-term financial plans. But in truth, money isn't a story about what's outside. Money is a mirror. It reflects who you are. And the deepest journey in understanding money is not about spreadsheets, but about understanding yourself. Money can be a tool, a vehicle, a reward, but it's also a container for fear, desire, scarcity, inferiority, and the longing to be seen. How you spend money, save it, invest it, or share it, none of that is random. It's shaped by your past, your wounds, your inherited values, and the scripts you've been living out since childhood. That's why money is never neutral. It always carries a voice. And that voice says a lot about you. Some see money as safety, and so they hoard it endlessly. Others see it as freedom and spend it to feel alive. Some fear money because they once saw it tear their family apart. Some crave money because they believe only with enough of it will they finally be loved. There's no absolute right or wrong here, only psychological patterns quietly driving every financial choice you make. And here's the miracle: once you become aware of those patterns, you're no longer money's victim. You begin to take ownership. You no longer spend to numb your emotions. You stop chasing things just to feel seen. You don't panic when your account dips, nor do you lose yourself in euphoria when a windfall comes in. You find calm because you understand that money doesn't define your worth. You define what money means in your life. Learning the psychology of money is really about observing yourself in every interaction with it. It's pausing when you feel guilty buying something for yourself and asking, why? It's stopping before a big purchase and asking, am I doing this because I need it, or am I trying to escape something? It's investing not to impress, but to build. It's giving not to be praised, but because you already feel full inside. I believe the person who understands money best isn't the one who has the most, It's the one who lives most peacefully with it. Someone who isn't driven by fear or blinded by greed, but acts with clarity and purpose. And to become that person, you don't need another finance course. You need to come back to yourself, to the place inside where every true decision is made. Money will always change, markets will always fluctuate. But if you understand yourself, you'll always know how to hold your direction, no matter what happens outside, because ultimately, the psychology of money isn't about numbers. It's about resilience, values, and the depth with which you face yourself. And if you're ready to learn, this journey won't just transform your wallet, it will transform you from the inside out.